Well, greetings, everyone. Today, I would like to introduce the topic of film semiotics, particularly with regards to narrative film. First, a few questions that I would like you to think about and also to follow me as I try and explain their answers. The first one is, what is film semiotics? I'm going to go a little deeper into this in a minute, but semiotics, in the general sense of the word, is the study of meaning. So when we talk about film semiotics, what we're saying is that we're interested in figuring out the meaning of film, not um, not just one particular film, but film in general as a form of art. How do we figure out, how do we get to understand the meaning of film and how film means something? Second question is, what is a natural language? And here, I would like you to think of any language that people speak around the world, right? Spanish, English, French, Tagalog, Japanese, Yoruba. I mean, whatever language is spoken is what we call a natural language, the language that people learn in their societies, in their families, and they use to communicate. And even other forms of languages like sign languages, for deaf people. So think about what a natural language is and what purposes does it serve. And the difference between a natural language and literature and film. In that sense, we speak a natural language, we use it to communicate, we use its tools, the tools that it offers to us in order to communicate whatever meaning we want. Whereas literature or film also are used to communicate meaning, and it also has codes and tools and matters of expression that an artist, a filmmaker, or a writer uses to communicate meaning. So in that sense, a natural language and literature and film are similar, are different in the sense that you can speak a natural language in a much more natural way, hence the word, whereas literature and film are more complex systems that need to be learned and that not anybody speaks or not anybody can use effectively. So they're more like systems of signification as opposed to a language that you can speak fluently, with anybody. So, and we will try to go over this a little further. So are literature and film languages? The answer is yes. They're not natural language, obviously, but they are forms of languages. There are ways in which we can understand language too, in a more general sense. Now, a few definitions I think already went through semiotics, which is part of semiosis. Semiosis, according to Amoretti, is a process of production of signification when something means something else, and that moment semiosis is taking place. Every act of language produces semiosis. So what I'm doing right now, it's semiosis because I'm using language. I'm using sounds that you can perceive through your ear. I'm also using hand gestures that are another way of communicating, and you can understand those hand gestures and sounds, and meaning is produced. So semiosis is taking place right now. Now, semiotics, according to Robert Stam, is the study of signs, signification, and systems of signification. So how do languages mean? How do other forms of communication also mean? If we want to know that, if we want to learn that, we take semiotics and we use it. We use the tools of semiotics as a scientific discipline to study, to understand how things mean, right? How things produce meaning. And when I say things, I mean anything that can produce meaning, right? If I hear a scream, it has a meaning. If I hear the frogs outside making their sounds, that's a meaning. It communicates something, probably that it has just rained. Or if I hear a dog barking, or I don't know, if I see a sign on the street, a traffic sign, if I see a red line on a street light. So anything that means something can be studied from the point of view of semiotics. Now, film obviously communicates meaning, and in that sense, it is the object of study of semiotics. So we can talk about film semiotics, or the semiotics of film. Cinema portrays the visible world in the form of semantic signs. Semantic is another form of saying meaning too, that are the product of exclusive film codes like montage and lighting. Montage, for example, is how the scenes are put together, right? How they're structured and organized to one after the other. Lighting, of course, the use of light, darkness, shades. These are just a few examples of those codes that cinema uses to communicate meaning, right? So we see a dark room and there are emotions that are communicated by that, or whatever the character is experiencing in that room may also be communicated through the lighting, for example, light or lack of light. So cinema portrays the world using signs and communicating through those codes. Cinema is a particular system of figurative language. It's figurative because sometimes lighting, going back to the example of lighting, is used metaphorically, right? So light may be used to symbolize goodness or clarity of mind, whereas darkness may symbolize evil or mystery or fear. So it's figurative. It's a figurative language in which linguistic metaphors are translated into images, and in which the shots are joined to form phrases and sentences. So in film, every shot, every image that you see separately are used as if they were words, and the shots put together into a scene, then you're creating phrases and sentences. Like the filmmaker creates phrases and sentences, figuratively speaking, right, metaphorically speaking, and in that way, cinema starts to produce meaning and communicate meaning, in a systematic way. So is film a language? Christian Metz says film is a language. It's a particular type of language because it is a means of expression. It is not a natural language. You don't speak film, but you can use the codes of film and the matters of expression of film to communicate a message. So in that sense, film is language. It uses matters of expression, like we've mentioned some examples of those, like lighting and montage, but there's also music and sound, and there's also the performance of the actors. There's a spoken word. There's everything that is involved in film to communicate meaning. Those are film's matters of expression. So cinema is a metaphoric language, like I already explained. It is also a group of messages based on a given matter of expression, therefore it is a language. And it is also an artistic language. It's a discourse or signifying practice characterized by specific codifications and procedures. Those procedures and codifications are the ones that are used strategically and systematically to communicate a message, which is at the end, the theme of a movie, right? The final message of the film. Cinema selects and combines images and sounds to form units with narrative autonomy in which the elements that constitute them interact semantically. All of those elements, the matters of expression, the codes, the tools that cinema use to communicate a message interact semantically. They mean something and they mean something together, right? So lighting has to do with dialogue. And then the colors of the clothes that a character is wearing also are maybe related to the character's state of mind, for example, or to the room where they are, or the place where they are, or the shape of the shot that is being used, the movement of the camera. So all of them work organically and together to communicate the message that the film ultimately wants to communicate. So film language is formed by codes. Some of those codes are film specific, that is, they are used by film and no other form of art, like camera movement, lighting, and montage. Other codes are shared with other arts, like narrative. The narration in a film is a code that is shared with literature, obviously. Or visual analogy is like using colors to communicate something else, or using shades put together or opposite. Those visual analogies are also codes that are used in plastic arts, like in painting and sculpture, but also in film. And there are codes that are not specific, but are also very important, like cultural codes. For example, we rely, especially in Hollywood films, we rely on the star system. So we watch a movie because Jason Momoa is in it, right? And we like his acting, or we like the way he looks, or we prefer, a Lady Gaga film because we're fans of Lady Gaga. So all of those codes that are cultural also influence the meaning of films. Other codes that are cultural have to do with the country where the movie is produced, the language that is used in communicating the film, if it's for children, if it's more, if it's intended for an older audience or a female audience, etc. All of those codes play an important role in how a movie communicates its message. So these are a couple of texts where this information comes from, but before I finish, I would like to just show you a few questions that are going to be very useful as you go and study and analyze films and film clips that we're going to use in the class. And these are some of the semiotic analysis questions that I would like you to keep in mind as you watch films and film clips. One is, what are the characters and issues represented? Think about that. What is the style and effect of acting and performance? Is the way a particular actor or actress acts having an influence on the way the message is communicated? And I would say yes, I think acting is a huge part of it. But also camera angles, shots, camera movement, editing and sequencing, when a shot is cut short and then another one comes next to it, and how scenes are put together and shots are put together, how the camera changes from one character to the other, et cetera, et cetera. All of those little codes are the ones that we're going to start paying attention to as we watch clips and full-length films. Lighting, I already talked about lighting, shade, and color. There's also sound, like sound effects, but also the sound of the voice or the sound of music. Location, set design. Another important question is, does the film make use of symbols, like metaphors or allegories, and how do they work within the context of the film? And finally, how is meaning created by technical elements like production design, mise en scène, which you can look up in the dictionary of film terms, but we will also discuss later in the course. Composition, how shapes are put together, and special effects. Particularly for certain films, special effects are a huge deal, and they really carry a lot of the meaning that the film has and tries to communicate. So I know this is maybe a lot, but we're going to go little by little. These questions are going to be very useful, and you don't have to answer them all at once, but just try to keep them in mind as we continue with the next activities and the analysis that you guys are going to have to perform. Okay, so thank you very much, and I guess I'll be seeing you pretty soon. Bye-bye.